could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts.
All right. We are back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce. It's Sunday, Slowdown Sunday here in the cave. We've been talking about this all week. Another Slowdown Sunday, but today we're celebrating the life of one Gordon Lightfoot, who you all know by now passed away this week at age 84. What a life this guy had. What a long life. And wow. Well, let's cut to it. Canadian folk singer, for those of you who've been reading this week, if you didn't know anything about him, he's a legend. He's a legend. He's a legend in Canada. He's a legend here. 20 albums through 2020. Started singing in a small town outside of Ontario, Canada. And he won a contest. There was a contest for boys whose voices who had not changed yet. I don't know, does it say that on the sign? And he won. And he got to perform at Massey Hall, the legendary Massey Hall. And then he ends up moving to California in 1958. He's a songwriter. He was only there for a couple of years. He moves back to Toronto. It wasn't his speed. But he ends up writing a song in 1964, Early Morning Rain. That's when things start to really move along for him. It's picked up by a very popular group, Ian and Sylvia in Canada, and they cover it, and then later Peter, Paul, and Mary. So really just a gifted songwriter, signed to Warner Brothers in 1970, and that's when things really take off. He writes, "If You Could Read My Mind," which sells 1 million copies, and that is the beginning of just a huge, wild ride for him. His music, his voice, such a steady voice, baritone voice, nothing too crazy. He sang about things people could identify with, especially in the 70s. Heartache, loneliness, lovers, highways, shipwrecks, regret, rivers, heroin, not directly, but indiscreetly. But If You Could Read My Mind, that was the second song I was ever obsessed about early on for him. And you just think about that opening line, "If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell," just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well. You just listen to these songs and it just cuts you real deep. And you know that ghost is me. But so many great songs. The first song I ever loved by him was The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald from 1976, which means I was probably about somewhere between 8 and 10 years old when I first heard it. And this was our parents' music. This was my mother's record. But it was one of the first songs that I ever loved, and it was because it told a story throughout. There was no chorus, refrain kind of thing. It told a story. And for whatever reason, I was really drawn to those kinds of songs, and especially because this one was about a shipwreck, which was a true story. And kids love shipwrecks, right? But it reminds me, Legend of the Woolly Swamp from Charlie Daniels Band, and Tweeter and the Monkey Man from Traveling Wilburys. Just those songs that weave a tale. And then it wasn't cool to be listening to 70s light music in the 80s when you were in high school. I wasn't putting down my Thompson Twins records and my Billy Idol records to play Gordon Lightfoot. It wasn't until college. I get to college, I got fraternity brothers that play acoustic guitar. They're listening to James Taylor. I get introduced to James Taylor. And then late 80s, it's okay to start listening to what we call now yacht rock. And so we started listening to that music, and I started digging deep on it. And all you need to do was get Gord's Gold, and you were all set. But in 1970, he puts out that song, and that begins 7 years of just album after album after album after hit. Summer Side of Life, Don Quixote, Old Dan's Records, Sundown, Cold on the Shoulder, Gord's Gold. 1975, he's already got a greatest hit, Summertime Dream, which is the Edmund Fitzgerald in 1976. Incredible. 6 years of just owning that genre of music. And just so good. We'll talk about some songs in a second, but he won 16 Juno Awards. If you don't know what a Juno Award is, that's the equivalent to a Grammy in Canada. He was nominated for 5 Grammys. Upon his death, all kinds of people tweeting about it. Bryan Adams was a good friend, Belinda Carlisle, Sebastian Bach of Skid Row, Stephen King, Roger McGuinn, the great Roger McGuinn. So many people, far and wide. We saw him in concert last year, my wife and I, Sarah. We knew what we were in for at his age. And it was a little rough to watch, but he knew all the lyrics and he did a nice job, and it was nice to see him. That's for sure. It was a decent show. So many great songs. How do you even start with him? Bitter Green, Canadian Railroad Trilogy, Minstrel of the Dawn, For Lovin' Me, Did She Mention My Name? Steel Rail Blues, Early Morning Rain. Gotta love Early Morning Rain. Sundown, we'll get back to that. That went to number 1. The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Rainy Day People. Cotton Jenny. Summerside of Life. I'm Not Saying. Song for a Winter's Night. Song for a Winter's Night. When I first heard that song, I fell in love with it immediately. And if you don't know that song, you're playing that today. And Amy Mann did an awesome version of that. But you got to hear a Song for a Winter's Night. I just love the bells in it, and it's just a great song. Don Quixote, of course. Circle of Steel, another one if you don't know. You're checking that one out today. Deep cut that I really, really like. Old Dan's Records. If You Could Read My Mind. Carefree Highway. You can play that today. That's a good one. But really, for me, song of the day is Sundown. He wrote Sundown and Rainy Day People when he was with one of his partners, his wife. I think it was his wife. Maybe they were married, maybe they weren't. Kathy Smith, a very volatile relationship. She was, it was a rough one. You can tell by that opening line. I can see her looking fast in her faded jeans. She's a hard-loving woman, got me feeling mean. Sometimes I think it's a shame when I get feeling better, when I feel no pain. My wife Sarah thinks that's the best lyric of all time, and you can't argue with that one. It's an amazing lyric right there. Kathy Smith later, when they were not together, infamous for injecting John Belushi with the speedball that killed him. On that note, but anyway, so many great songs, and what a treasure as far as that's concerned. I mean, you just love this music. You sit down, you play his greatest hits, you play Gord's Gold Sunday with your coffee, and it's a good day with Gordon Lightfoot on your speakers. So many people talking to me about just what a blow to them, and this was, and something like 6 of his albums are now in the top 20, top 40, whatever it is on Amazon, because people are just soaking it up, re-listening to his music and celebrating his career. And today is a perfect day to do that. Just break out your Gordon Lightfoot and play Gord's Gold, whatever it is. Play, if there's a greatest hits, play them all. The Edmund Fitzgerald, that song, what's that, 8 minutes long? It's tough for me. Carefree Highway, awesome. Early Morning Rain, awesome. But really, song of the day is Sundown. And what a way to end it. The celebration of his life, Sundown. So there you go. That's Gordon Lightfoot for you. Comment below. Would love to hear your stories, what you think about his music and what your favorite music is by him. So, Slow Down Sunday, Gordon Lightfoot. Rest in peace. Have a good one. And as usual, I'll catch you on the flip side.